Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service.
Here we are again at the end of a rainbow.
Weirdness and experimentation in music is always a tricky thing because it's very easy to go too far and make music that is so unlistenable to many listeners. And it's also easy to make music that indeed is pushing a lot of musical boundaries, but to no meaningful end. Meaning the end product doesn't really come together into a cohesive statement that says anything of substance or anything coherently. Luckily for us, listeners of Fatboi Sharif and Noface's latest album, Preaching in Havana, none of the above applies. Havana is a true mindfuck of an album that is unbelievably stunning, and I'm pleased to welcome the creators of this record, Fatboi Sharif and Noface, to explain how the hell this twisted record was made. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. How's it going, Sharif and Noface? What's up?
Yeah, my man. What's good with you?
Man, I'm doing great. I love this album. I'm so excited to have you guys on, and I'm excited to have you on, Sharif, for the second time, and then Noface for the first. I've been a big fan of both of you guys, and yeah, just super pumped with what we're gonna be talking about because this album is just special. Like, I was able to get, I think GENG sent me the advance on this, and I've sat with this for quite a while. Like, I think it's been, I don't know, at least a few months. And like, I just feel like this is an album that couldn't have been created by anybody else except like you two specifically, because like it has the production style that I know Noface you're known for, and then the lyrical style that Sharif you're known for, but like you guys together, it just brought everything to another level. Like, I don't think you could have made this with someone else if you tried to do this. Like, it's just, I've never heard anything that like embodies madness and like twisted surrealism quite like Preaching in Havana. So just mega props to you for that. Mega props.
Nah, I appreciate you, bro. Nah, it's definitely shout out to everybody who been supporting the album so far. Like, it's dope because when we first was making it, and especially more like the post-production, we were saying to each other, we was like, yo, people gonna bug out when they hear it. And it's dope because everybody seemed to get it. Like, everybody seemed to get it and embrace what we was going for. So that's always a blessing for sure.
Yeah, like this album is pretty batshit crazy in a lot of moments. It's like really not like anything I've heard before. And it's so distinct that like I feel it had to have been conceived with like a clear intent in mind. Like, this doesn't sound like something you could have just like stumbled upon using a beat pack and then throwing some rhyme together one day. Like, it sounds like you really had like a particular vision. So I want to get into that. Like, what were you trying to go for when making Preaching in Havana?
Well, it's funny. I'll answer that going back to like when me and Noface first linked. Literally, like, I met him through Lone Sword. So they was cool and they was working on a bunch of stuff. And it's funny, I remember Lone Sword and Drive By. They both came to me like, yo, you gotta meet this dude, Noface. I think you'll sound fire over his beats or whatever he fired. And me and Noface first started talking on like IG, like in the DMs. The last concept album that he did all the beats on, I was a fan of that. So when we started speaking, I'm like, oh, this is the guy who did those. And we kind of just hit it off.
Are you talking about What's Done in the Dark?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, that's so good. That's one of Concept's best. Like,
Yeah, now for sure. And we kind of just hit it off from that. Like on some yo, I fuck with you. This project is dope. Then yo, he was a fan of Gandhi and Cyber City.
Yeah.
Yo, that's this and that. So we set up to link up in the city. So he was like, yo, I'm gonna come down to New York and let's link. We linked at Lone Sword crib. And it's funny because kind of like with me and Roper, like me and No Face kind of hit it off musically from the gate. And it's crazy because I'll say definitely from like within the first two sessions, we got some of the best songs from the project.
Mm.
So first, we got songs like Parasite. We got songs like Static Vision just from linking up like one or two, even like John Hinckley. I think that might have been the third session we had just on some talking. He showed me a beat, and it's like, oh, this is dope. I got something for this, like type thing. So it
Yeah.
came like for sure.
It definitely came pretty easy. And I think like the concept, we did sort of come up with a concept that guided or informed like the album a lot from an early point, but it all sort of came just very naturally. I think even the Havana, like the preaching in Havana, sort of all of that came from maybe like the second time me and Sharif met, and we were at Lung's crib, and we were talking about Havana, and we were talking about Cuba, like already, I think. And Lungs had been to Cuba for some reason, and I've also been to Cuba. I'm actually Cuban,
Oh, okay.
low key. So I know we were already sort of talking about that, and we're just hanging out. And I think after maybe we had like the first demo or the first song, we're all listening to it at Lung's room in Lone Sword's house, and yeah, we sort of came up with the. I think Sharif said it sounds like like preaching in the middle of Havana or something, and then from
No,
there,
no. You remember we was talking, and
yeah,
well, we was talking. Really, we was talking about everything that was going on at the time. So like COVID
yeah,
and everything that was going on with the protests. And Lungs was like, "Yo, I wish I can move to Havana and get away from all of this bullshit." And
yeah,
I looked at you like, "Yo, preaching in Havana. That's gonna be the name of the album." Like, and we kind of put the concept around that and that thought and idea.
yeah. It all came together from there.
What is you're saying like earlier that the concept for the album kind of came together pretty early on when you guys were recording. Like what would you say that concept is?
Well, the when we said I preach in Havana, we kind of wanted to go off and give our opinion on what's been going on in the world for the past few years. Just this whole circulation of hysteria, people scared if they going to make it to the next day with everything that was going on with, like I said, COVID, the police protests,
Yeah.
uh, unemployment, people losing their housing.
And
Now
this
it's
was like
people,
this was the end of 2020 when
Oh, okay.
we
It's
we
important.
first met.
yeah,
December 2020.
people even going crazy over social media now, like it's Twitter gonna explode and all of that type of stuff. Like, so
We're still in it. We're
we
still relevant.
and literally like to me the Havana aspect is when you think of it, people think of it's celebrated for being like an amazing place. Like a lot of celebrities go there, a lot of people go there to chill and vibe out and get away from stuff. And we kind of wanted to put like a flip side on that title and that thought.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, like this album definitely like kind of exemplifies or like puts it really clearly like all that madness, all that chaos, all that fear, a lot of that fear, and just like you just that sinking feeling that something's not right, and you're gonna pay or something. And I think you guys did a great job of like putting that forward on an album, especially because the album's not like it's not very long, but it just packs so much into it. Like I never leave the album being like, damn, I just wish you guys would have added more tracks or like made this a bit like more fleshed out. Like it feels very much like you guys like realized the ideas you were going for.
Nah, yeah, definitely. For sure, for sure.
And so these beats, these beats particularly, they feature like, a ton of
Mm,
sound play and generally
mm.
are just beats that like often on this album I'm like I don't really understand like what you were even thinking. Like what could you really been looking at where you're like, this makes sense to put this on that. So
Yeah,
like what did the creative process look like when you were making beats for this album? And like were there any main points of inspiration or influence that you drew from?
that's a great question. I think honestly, it starts um, a lot of the beats and the instrumentals you hear on the album started, I think, really just uh, like before I even met Sharif. Some of them I had like an early idea of what that beat was gonna be, or what a lot of the beats were gonna be, and I think just as usual, like I've been making music for almost 10 years. I'm coming up on 10-year anniversary. So I think I'm just already uh, kind of trying to make the most abstract stuff I can think of. I think you know I've for many many years like been making beats and working with different MCs and other artists on various levels, but really like what it comes down to is, all of this music is therapy. All of this music is an outlet, for me at least, and for Sharif, I think as well, to sort of express our emotions and try to get out, you know, whatever, maybe we have like a certain feeling of dread or fear, or there's like some imminent sort of looming. I think personally, I've I've honed like my technical aspects of uh, my work enough to where like I can pretty much express how I'm feeling pretty fluidly,
Yeah.
and I don't really think about all the technical aspects. I don't think about like 4/4, kick snare patterns. I need to do this. I need to make this beat for this person. Um, I think I tend to just start really in like an emotional, or you know more of a personal place, and so I think there was a lot of like already scary sounding loops, and I met Sharif and he heard some of those and he was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And a lot of it, some beats got made from there. A lot of the beats got arranged and fleshed out, and or maybe Sharif would tell me like Sharif made me slow down the BPM by like half for one of those joints, and Sharif is putting in a lot of input as well, and I think he helped like flesh those out into longer, like more arranged, um, more like finished beats. And yeah, really, so like Sharif said too, like we just kind of clicked musically too, like he had a similar kind of vision that I did already when we met, so it really like kind of molded together well, and it wasn't even like I felt like I had to go out of my way to like make something totally different for Sharif. Like I'm already trying to make something different. Like
Yeah.
we don't get me wrong. Like we don't need another knowledge. We don't need another alchemist. We don't need any of that. Like I'm not. I don't want to hate. I don't want to talk shit. you don't need another, like soul sample flipping producer. Like, like if I'm gonna flip the sample, I'm gonna do it my way. So I think it's a lot of it is just kind of like my own insanity that I've been sort of channeling for the past 10 years. And yeah, man, it comes from, like Sharif was saying, like you said, it comes from real places, real fear, and, paranoia, amongst other things.
No, that's really interesting. I'll just say that I'm definitely going to clip that and say that No Face says Alchemist and Knowledge are trash. And I'm just going to clip that 10
Yeah,
second
yeah, no,
part.
no, no. Tell
Yeah.
them, yeah, that should be the headline.
For
Please
sure.
don't.
But no, that's actually that makes a lot of sense. And I love the way you kind of put that because it sounds like you guys are like flushing out those fears and that dread, that paranoia, like through the music. It's kind of like a detoxification. Like you said, it's kind of like music is like therapy in that way. That's that's
Yeah,
really interesting. And I love the layering and like the way this album flows from start to finish. Like it feels like a lot of these songs have like even just on like a 2 minute joint, they have like a bunch of little different little movements, different pieces all into one track. So like
yeah.
you kind of touched on it just before. Like how do these beats like end up the way they are? Do they start off as like smaller pieces that you're like, oh damn, this could look good if you arrange them together? Or do you make these with like all of the pieces in mind all at once?
It's it's kind of both. I already the method uh I usually, go with is when I'm making anything is you know, kind of like an intense layering. Like sometimes I'll have like 20 samples in one project, and then, I sort of just start from there and like piece together what I think sounds good. Sometimes I'll start stuff like that. Uh, and the 20 samples, it might just be like completely arbitrary, like whatever I found on my computer, or like that morning was inspired uh, to listen to, or thought sounded good. So I do make music in like a very kind of like whimsical way. I don't use sample kits. I don't use packs. I don't use any of that sort of stuff. I just sort of like immediately attack like whatever I'm feeling.
Hmm.
And I do have then what makes Havana even more special really is like me and Sharif really sat down at a certain point. We had rough versions of all the songs recorded, and at one point we sat down together in my studio, and this was probably like uh, April or May of 2021. So pretty much the rough album is coming together. And we sat down, and I pretty much like picked out, I had a bunch of old gospel records, a lot of old vinyls in my collection just at home. And I had some other samples in my computer that had sort of been sitting around. And I had some rare, like weird psychedelic radio broadcast preacher stuff that was, I didn't really know what to do with. And then it became like very obvious, I think, in that moment. So there was really one day where I sat down with Sharif. We put the 11 tracks into one project file. So like running to straight continuous, like 21 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
however long it is. And we really just went crazy. And I did scratches and delay and like effects. I added a lot of like vinyl samples, other, like I said, yeah, recordings I had on my computer. I added a bunch of the stuff on top, which really like laced the album with I think, a theme of sort of preaching, and like, there's a lot of like talking samples straight up, like
Yeah.
after I die, where am I going, heaven or hell? Like, and there's a lot of like just preaching, like actual samples of some preacher records, some old weird gospel records I had. And that's all just straight up from that day. So that really, I think, thematically and like in general, just ties the whole album together really well. And like, I don't even know how I did it, to be, perfectly honest. But I think also mushrooms are like,
Hey, totally see
yeah,
that.
very, very helpful in the process.
Hooray for mushrooms, y'all.
Yeah.
Hooray for mushrooms and edibles all day long.
Man, like those skits, I love the way you said that, how like it really does tie everything together, because that's one of the the most like strongest ways this album like just really fucks with my mind, is those like the Ken Nordine skits, like all these weird,
Mm,
yeah, like those like radio preachers like you mentioned, like
yeah.
it just does something. It makes me feel so uncomfortable. Like it genuinely does. It's just like, oh, what is he saying? And it also, like, this album straight up introduced me to that dude, because like
Mm.
because I remember I tweeted about it, and then people put me on like, oh, you got to listen to this guy. And then when I look in my iTunes, like I actually already had a project, the most iconic one, like the first word jazz. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, oh shit, I've heard, because I'm sure I like back in the day heard that this was an album you have to listen to, and I did not even have it like synced on any like device of mine. I guess I just ignored it once I got it. But this is yeah, props to you guys for introducing me, because that is just some of my favorite music. It's so fucking weird. And I think it really added a nice touch. And for you, Sharif, like these beats obviously like don't feature traditional pockets necessarily. Sometimes they're pretty disjointed, sparse, arrhythmic even. Like, what, as a rapper, like what do you see in these beats that made you think like, oh, this is perfect for me, this is the right kind of beat for me that I want to rap over?
Nah, it's funny you said that, like, because I remember we was joking before, and me, like, saying with Fence, like, I've been recording, like, going on 10 years. So to me, I've literally heard mostly every type of beat that you can use. Like, to me, I don't get excited by just like a regular, just boom bap beat anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole thing now when I connect with a producer is just like, yo, give me something that's going to challenge me. Give me a beat that I'm gonna hear and be like, yo, how the hell can I rap to that? Like, and to me, that makes the rewarding of certain songs so much greater. Like when I first heard the Nazi Needle Marks beat, I sat on that for like a good month and a half and just slept to it and listened to it. And once I came up with the flow and wrote it, I'm like, oh, this song is brilliant. Like even a song like Parasite, like, and that was a crazy one because Face kind of brought that beat to me as kind of like more of a full beat. Like it had the drum pattern, it had the regular tempo, and I told him, I'm like, yo, on this album, the gloves is off. So I'm like, fuck this beat up. I'm like, do me a favor. I'm like, slow the drum pack. I'm like, slow the loop all the way down, take the drums out, and put the drum in random spots. And I'm gonna write to that to make like a flow to it. Like, and he was like, you sure? I'm like, yeah. So he did that. And that was another song that like I wrote to it. And when we nailed it, I was like, yo, it's no song that's like this. Like this
Man, for
song.
real. I love how you say, yo, fuck this beat up, because that's exactly like kind of what I feel like you guys are doing. I'm like, okay, there's no way you just decided to do this. And that's a Nazi Needle Marks. Yeah, that's probably my favorite joint on the whole album, because that's like the most that's just like it's like really great raps, but then you're like the singing is like, and like with the beat, it's just like I don't understand what kind of genre of music this is, because it's like really classical in a way. It's like it feels like it's like laughter. It's so good, man. Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
We definitely went into it on some like, to me, like, and I was just saying this to Next Movement when I was talking to them, like, for me, like, if it is, we both been studying music so long and just a fan of overall music. To me, every few years or generations, to me, you always get certain projects that's so dope that it switches kind of like how people look at certain music, and people
100%.
people look at music like, oh wow, I didn't know people, I never heard nothing like that. I didn't know you could do that. So to me, that's what Havana, we want to inspire the next generation of musicians that if somebody hear it who's the next 13, 14-year-old producer, the next 14-year-old MC, like we want them to hear Havana like, wow, this is what they doing. I think I can even take it further than that. Like, I think I can create my own world. Like, and it's for me, it's always certain albums that have moved me to the point that I've heard from an album like Purple Rain for Prince, the first Bad Brains album, Ex-Military from Death Grips, Black Up from Shabazz Palaces,
Mm.
all of those albums, Downward Spiral from Nine Inch Nails. Like forever, I'll remember when I first heard them and what they did to me. That I was like, yo, musically, I gotta keep pushing forward. Like I gotta accomplish this feeling musically for me that these people did for me. So
No, I think you guys definitely achieved that because there's a lot of times where I listen to sound, especially those first few listens where I was just like so like enamored with how different it was. And I don't think it was different in a way where it's like you guys are just you're just different and it sounds terrible. I'm like, this is working though. Like this is you guys are nailing whatever this is, you know? It's enjoyable. It's not just fascinating because it's weird, you know? Like
yeah,
that's
different
real.
terrible is awful.
Yeah.
I hate different terrible. Like
Yeah, yeah. It hit that's a different kind, literally a different kind of terrible.
It's not a gimmick.
Yeah,
It's not a
exactly.
gimmick at all.
Yeah, like just
And
as you were saying, like those skits and like those dialogue pieces you layered on, like it wasn't just, oh, it sounds weird. Like it fit in with the vibe that you're going for with the album. Like that's what I think separates this album, just kind of in general. You know, so like ever since Gandhi Loves Children dropped, you dropped Cyber with Lone Sword. I
yeah,
feel like
yeah,
your music and your rapping in particular has particularly gotten more kind of abstract. Kind of you've worked with like in vocal inflections, you're like holding different like syllables more often. Like I think it's just getting weirder and weirder. And I think it's kind of manifests itself on Preaching Havana. Why do you feel like you've been gravitating towards this more eccentric or like distinct brand of rapping?
not a funny thing to me. Like I've always been like that. Like, and to me, even if you heard the Ape Twin project before Cyber City, it was remnants of it there, where
Mm,
a song like Cloud Atlas or a song like Lazarus Taxa or even like Egyptian Mermaid Lust, like that was the first time he had wrote work, like 2014, 2015. And you get into Gandhi, and even with Gandhi having joints like the Fly Pelicans, the Smithsonian's that everybody attract to, it still has its stigmatas and jack-o'-lantern sculptures.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's even like, so to me, it just kind of casually just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, the whenever I think of like the last couple projects from you, I think of that Jack-O-Lantern song because that's like really like the sign of what's to come. Where I feel like you just took this like impressionistic style of rapping to like another level, and I think it's just elevated. You know, it's crazy. Really,
Like,
obviously a big fan. Um, and I want to go to like something related to like the post production because I think that's like a really big key in this album, given like all the sound play, all of the different like, kind of like dialogue and stuff. And I understand that Gang was key in that part of the album. So like particularly for you, No Face, but also Sharif, like what was the importance of him working on that post production in terms of like achieving the atmosphere and like the vibe that you were going for with this album?
shout out to Big Genghis. Big Genghis Khan, PTP, the one and only. Now, it, um, it was kind of like, I remember earlier, probably when we finished the project, I let Ging just hear it on some like, we chilling, we in the studio. I let Gig hear it, and we listened to it in the studio, and he like, yo, this is dope. What's good with this? Like, what y'all doing with it? Like, and from there we was talking about putting it out on PTP and him mixing and mastering because he was basically just like, yo, I see where y'all going with this. I can take it to the next level. Like, and for me being a fan just of his music and from King Vision Ultra to everything else he worked on, I was like, yeah, to me, he's the only guy that can, he's the only guy that gets this. Like, he's the only guy that can do.
Yeah, I find his kind of like track record, particularly on like an Unknown Infinite, like that was like another album where dialogue and kind of like warped kind of sampling and stuff like that was a huge part of it. So I could definitely see how that worked out. Um,
We knew he could do something that wasn't like just a rap album, just a hip hop record. We knew he was already doing unconventional stuff.
mhm.
So Sharif thought it would work, and it worked better than either of us expected. I think. I think
How did it sound compared to I guess when he took it from where he took it when you guys finished it off roughly to where he took it at the end? Like how big was that difference between when he
I'll,
touched
I'll
it to
say
after?
I'll say this: there's a big difference. Honestly, the main thing is with the vocal. I think the vocals before were just completely unmixed. It was definitely like hard to. I think it was hard to understand what Sharif was saying in some portions, just because there was literally like no mix, nothing on the vocal track, nothing at all. Sharif also like tends to already push the boundaries in terms of recording. Like Sharif will be in a session and like Sharif will do a like a verse and then a dub or an ad lib track, and then he'll do like another ad lib track where he stands like 6 feet away from the mic on the opposite side of the room and just like screams like in
Oh
the
yeah.
direction of the mic, and then like that'll get layered on top of the verse too. So really, like in terms of just the vocals, like it was a world of difference, and like Gang brought out and I think revealed a lot of the stuff which we had recorded and Sharif had done, and like it was already there, but it was just really like muddy. And you know, like some of the ideas Sharif might have had in terms of like uh warping his voice or like sort of, you know, changing the intonation or the the speed, like I think Gang like took those ideas and like ran with it even to the next level. Gang was adding, he was like pitching up uh ad lib tracks and like sort of like putting like, you know, there's like uh part of a verse that like turns into this weird like robotic like singing by the end of it, you know, just because of all the effects that like Gang sort of transformed that one, that one track of Sharif's voice, right? It's like not even the main verse. It's not the
Mhm.
main vocals on the song. But so, you know, Gang really did put in a lot of work, and we went to his studio pretty much this whole last summer. It was like a couple months, 2-3 months of us sitting down with Gang, and Gang, yeah, he saw the vision, he saw it perfectly, and he like really, I think, heard a lot of those little details, and he paid attention to like really paid attention to what was there, because all the samples were already there, all the talking, like I said, all the beats, and Sharif's performance as well, you know, like this crazy stuff he's doing. So, you know, Gang really just, I think, cleaned the whole thing up and like helped it, you know, deliver the message like
Yeah.
infinitely, like you know, so, like 100 times better, really. And he like on the creative side too, you know, he did tweak out a bunch of, you know, like I said, he might put a big crusher on one ad lib on one track on Sharif's vocals, just like one little piece, and then he might have like put this a little bit of delay or like filter out the high end of the end of my beat, like when it's fading out. He killed it. I think he really like it's weird because the whole album really came together like very, very naturally. And like even like me as a producer, I'm like scared to hand off the stems. I'm scared to work with the mix engineer, the mastering guy, you know, because I got a pretty like specific vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like pretty picky just personally.
I
But
think it's pretty notable that all three of you, because I'm including Gang in this,
yeah,
I feel like you all kind of have a similar, from what I've kind of encountered through all like interacting with all you guys and your music, that you have a similar kind of maybe worldview or just kind of like an affinity for certain sounds. So it kind of makes sense that you guys can all somehow naturally, because you guys keep saying like naturally this, naturally that. He was able to take what your vision was that you guys had created initially and just add on to it in a way that was like consistent. It wasn't like changing it up, tweaking it in a way that kind of defied what you guys were going for. And I really like what he did with the vocals. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
No,
he changed it up but it was in the perfect way.
Mm-hmm.
no,
You know, yeah.
yeah, I can't think of enough of what he did. Like, I bug out when I hear just like the ad libs and how he mixed the hybrid ad libs, where he got them scattering in certain pitches, even like the beginning of the Nazi Needle and Fentanyl Firing Squad. Like, he definitely showed why he's like one of the best at what he do, for sure.
Yeah, man, the ad libs need to shine because you're one of the ad lib kings. Like I think in the rap game right now, like you SD Knack, you SD Knack have some of like just top of my head some of my favorite ad libs. Like just audacious, shouldn't work but do. Like, and I love it. I love it. All right, man, this has been a great convo. I want to end it with this. Like, what's your favorite track? Pick one and why.
I'm gonna make it two.
Okay.
It's hard.
It's a spiderweb centerpiece. So to me, like, if someone hears Static Vision and Fentanyl Firing Squad, that kind of starts the whole embodiment of what we wanted to go with the album. To me,
it's a good choice.
Yeah. That's well said. I might also pick Fentanyl Firing Squad. Just crazy song. I was like almost crying listening to that song the other day. So
wow.
Oh,
God damn, man. Yeah.
That. He was crying, Rohan.
It's real, bro. It's real. You hear that song, man? And you know, if you listen, you can hear the actual loop of that beat is like some real melancholy, heartbroken 2021 beats right there too.
Man, yeah, this whole album I really can hear that this came out of like those last couple years for the world that's been obviously very trying with the pandemic. Like it really is like a nice soundtrack for the times, I guess you could say. For me, I'd say Nazi Needle Marks. I think I mentioned it earlier. That's my favorite. I just like that's just on another level of like how it does so much on one track. Like it's like got this like really nice like classical melody to it. It almost sounds like you're like performing on stage, but it's all really dark though. It's not something's not right. Again, like all the sounds, something's not right. Something is not right. And I love that. Oh man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Shout out my brothers from Taze Grip, Lungs and Feet. They definitely came and gave like two of the verses ever.
Oh my god, yeah, that we gotta mention that quick. Like, yeah, those are truly some of their best features. That Lungs one, that Feek one, man. Those are definitely two of the best songs as well. Like those kind of nicely break out, like because you have like the more like sparse and like really atmospheric kind of songs, but then those ones are the ones that hit a bit harder, like just more kind of like jolt you, especially the Fick one. Like that beat is just bangs. It's just like that just goes really hard. Like
yeah,
it's a good pace for the album.
AP4
Shout out
come.
Grip.
Yeah, shout out Grip. Shout out Grip. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay, well, I really appreciated this conversation. This was so dope to get that kind of insight, kind of like validate some of the things I've been thinking about this album as I've been listening to it over the past few months. And congratulations, this is one of the best of the year. One of the most unique albums I've heard, period, and definitely the most unique thing I've heard in the last few years. So
Thank
yeah,
you, bro.
well done. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate that, man. Much love.
Much love to my man Rohan. Much love to Canada. Let's get it. Yeah.
Shout out Canada.
Yeah. All right. Peace out, guys. Have a good one.
You already
Thank
been.
you.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye. So there we have it. Another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some new perspectives and insights into what the greatest art form known to man in hip-hop music has to offer. If you want to support the show in the most meaningful way possible, it would be my absolute honor to have you as a patron in the new Rap Music Plug podcast Patreon. Through this Patreon, you will be getting exclusive content such as bonus episodes, exclusive album recommendations, exclusive playlists, early access to episodes, and more. And above all, though, you will be able to support the show directly in a way that will not only justify the crazy amount of time I spend on this show already, but allow me to cover some of the expenses related to supporting all of these great artists that we cover on the show through the website, and will allow us to sustain and build on this amazing growth that the RMPP has experienced recently. Big shout out to Dano of Free Music Empire, Levi, Mahima, Jeff, Mitch, Dash Lewis, Pancake Cleaner, Trey, Noah, Justin, Brandon, Joe, Gavin, Matt, Teddy Faley, Jackson, CN, Slumber Logic, Fatman Tomb, and Khalid for your generous support through the Patreon. I really appreciate it. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.